All right, so what's up, everybody? I had already started recording this video for about 10 minutes and I wasn't recording any audio. So here I am once again. Basically, just to give you a quick idea of what this is, I posted on the Indie Hackers forum if anyone is interested in some free UI design help. I had some extra time on my hands this week and I thought it would be fun to do some kind of UI redesigns, like one screen, or essentially here's what I was thinking. I posted this in the community, preferably an app UI, but open to marketing pages, redesigning one screen or page and publishing a video explaining the changes and showing the before and after. Um, Unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of people have reached out, and so there's probably about 10 or so people in here that have asked for some help, and I am really bad at making decisions of who's going to get this, design. So instead of doing the full design, I actually posted about this in the forum. So um, instead of doing like a half redesign and half audit type thing, well, no, instead of doing the full redesign of a page, I'm going to do this like half redesign, half audit type thing. Each one's going to be about 30 minutes, maybe up to an hour, depending on how's it going. And I'll hop in and out of Sketch, Figma, or HTML, and just talk you through what I'm thinking as I go. I'll post a video. This is the video, but basically I'm going to post a link here for people. I'm just going to go until I burn out here. So I'd already started this and gotten 10 minutes in, but the first person was this person, Esteban, who said, help me pick one. So he had two of these screens here of this app UI. And so one was gray and one had this like lighter background. I think that the lighter colorful background is the one that I would choose out of these two. And so what I'm gonna do is, what's up? What I'm gonna do is pull one of these into Figma, which I've already started doing, and just kind of get started on it. I'm gonna put some background music on for myself really quick. Okay, so let's just switch over to not that. My keyboard doesn't want to work for me. Okay, so here is the original UI. The idea in the thread, let me actually pull this up. Basically said, trying to decide between two background colors, trying to make the best design choices that allow easy reading, simple, big, simple, beautiful UI. I think that's a great idea. Readability is super important. I can see where you're going with everything is pretty big and in your face. One of the things that I had mentioned, so I already started on doing some critique here, but of course I wasn't recording any audio. So one thing about doing big UIs or trying to make elements really big and readable is that oftentimes you can actually sacrifice usability and like I don't want to say accessibility, but the experience for users by making things too big where you're drawing attention to things that aren't as important or don't deserve that much attention. So as for an example, the first thing that I noticed was this navigation bar where we have, thread, board, chat team settings. It's very big across the whole top, and you can see like if you kind of do a little squint test, it's like what draws your eye. This navigation item, which is the current nav item, which is why it's dark, at least I'm assuming, is really draws a lot of our attention. That's obviously not the goal where we want them to be using the app, not getting distracted by a navigation item. So really navigation in a UI is usually pretty secondary. It's not the primary thing we want someone using on a page. So what I started doing is I just pulled a second board here. I've put like a background cover so you can't see anything behind it. And my initial idea was to make everything a little bit smaller so it's still readable. Let me actually open up the designer here. I'm not sure if this is the exact right sizes and everything, but we've got Roboto. This is a dark, very bold black Roboto. I'm here at 22 pixels. What I've also done is instead of having this gray color, so let me actually just duplicate this for you. So you can compare here. I don't know what just happened. Oh, I had a second keyboard that had a wire sitting on it. I was like, why are things going rogue on me right now? So I'm going to bring that back over here. And of course, the spacing is not perfect. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that stuff. But what you'll see here is the difference. And I'll actually, what I want to do is just show you, make this the black color. This is just flat black. So you can see the difference of this gray, which is the original gray, and a gray that kind of sits with the background. It just feels a little bit more, it doesn't clash as much, and I think it almost sets itself back a little bit. So it's not drawing your attention to it, because it just kind of folds into the background, and that's what you want out of these muted colors. And so we'll see, we make that color, and this black here, you can compare. What I did here was essentially I took the background. So I'll duplicate this so we can see, and we'll look at where this is. So all I did, I'm using HSB coloring. I took the background color, and essentially I just lowered the brightness. Well, I increased the opacity quite a bit, and then I lowered the brightness. And so that way it's more of like a bluish tint than it is black, because this black is just so bold compared to this. So you can see here where this fits on the color palette. And that way it can kind of stand out from, whoops, I actually don't want to delete that. I want to just make that this color and then delete that. So you can see that this one still stands out as the primary nav item, or the active nav item, the one that we're on. But it doesn't really draw your attention as much as this. And so I might even make these a little bit lighter and make this lighter as well, or make it, I would play around with this, but I don't want to get too crazy and take up all of our time just for that one thing. But so making that a bit smaller, we're not going against your idea of like a big, beautiful UI by making elements the size that they're supposed to be, because not everything can be a size 40 font. You have to kind of pick and choose your battles here. And so right before the audio cut out, I was thinking, is this face here, this icon important? Like, what value is this adding? And this is something where I'm not able to ask you these questions up front, but I'll ask you now so you can think about it. Like, is there a difference between the face or the user picture here and settings? Because typically you could either get rid of settings and only have the user face, and then have this be a drop down. So that would look something like this, where we just get rid of the user's face, and that way it's not as much of a distraction. Or another option, just duplicated the artboard, something that I do really often when doing design. It's a good way of just kind of exploring different ideas. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to keep the face, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump these all over to where the settings is. This would be, again, spacing and everything isn't important, but you can see here that we have our two different options. So either this icon of your face or this picture could act as the settings button, which you'll see in a lot of UIs, or you could just say settings and not have their face there. Because if this is their account, how often do they need to see their face? Or you can use it as a signifier of, hey, this is your account, come here to get account settings. So personally, I don't have really, I'm not dogmatic about either way. Just want to give you a couple options there. The next thing that I'm thinking about here is I'm going to stick with this one, just because the next thing that I'm thinking about is the thing that pops to my mind is these faces here. So we have it up here. This, I'm guessing, is showing who the user is. I think that oftentimes, from like a UX perspective, this relies on, I'm trying to make assumptions and not just, be completely oblivious to why you have this here. But assuming that in some of these threads, you'll have different people. So it won't always be Esteban. It will be, John, and John will have a different picture, or Sally, and their picture will identify them. It'll be a thing that you can look at as a quick glance. One thing that might be better, I think, if you want to give things more space, and this is where we'll see how this goes, but I would, I'm actually going to just cheat here. And what I'm going to do, so Figma doesn't allow you to cut pictures out very well, but there's some hacks. Or at least, I don't know if it's a hack. I think it's kind of hacky. But I'm going to make this I'm going to crop this image to only be this. So we can still have it, but we can manipulate what it is. That seems about right. And now you'll see that I have, so I can take this, and we have this element now. And what I'll do is I'm going to drag this in, and so it should look relatively similar. Cool. So you can't really even tell the difference, but there's no way to like, I can't just select this circle and use it because we're using a screenshot. It makes things even more difficult. But so what I would think about doing is one, shrinking this down. So oftentimes with things like this, avatars, you could say, they're different enough where people can kind of just see, and even maybe hovering over, you have their name here as well. So I think making this smaller would, simplify things a little bit. And what we're going to do is, again, just cover up this background and go back. And now we have our smaller icon here. And now with this smaller icon, what you'll see is that it opens up a lot more space for what is really important, which is the project items. So whether this is going to be centered with this or not, let's think about that. But let's see. Now we can duplicate these down. So just as an example, we'll pull this down. We're going to have to do some more stuff because it looks kind of weird now with it's so far away, if you know what I mean. Like compared to where it was, now these look separated. So what we could do, is go over here, and it's a little bit less of the screen. So you see how big these were, and they're kind of demanding your attention being that big, but I don't think they have to be. So we kind of shrunk those down a little bit here. And of course the image quality will be better, so you'll still be able to see them. But now what I'm thinking is we actually want to, see, I'm trying to find ways to not create a ton of extra work here, or spend time, doing things that aren't helpful. But what this allows us to do, honestly, is give us some space here. So what I would do is I'm going to do this again. This is hacky, but again, I want to make the best use of our time and give you the best feedback that I can. So if I do this hacky crop again, I'll take these items. That's not going to be perfect, but you get the point here. Now, by bringing these over a bit, you can see where the overlap is. I'm going to pull this out and line it up. And so now things are a little bit bigger. You might want to keep the same sizes and not do that. But this is just an example, doing the best I can with what I've got here. Just an example here of how you might move things around, give things more space than they deserve. So what we'll notice, the first thing I notice when I do this is that, obviously we've covered up this bottom part here. What I'm wondering is what the difference is between, so we'll go back to the original so we can kind of make decisions here, but what is the difference between this and this here? That's something where, like this is what is next for simple tasking beta, and then type a message. So is there a difference? Is there a reason why there's two inputs? I think if this isn't going to be here, I think that either we need to have one or the other. So this is nice that it's on the bottom. This gives you a little bit of a task, but what also I'm noticing, so I think that this is probably the better place to have it, and you can make that decision. Maybe it's better to have it on the bottom because you have this little toolbar. But in this example, and you could take this wherever you want, obviously. Feel free to take none of this advice, but we're gonna push this back a little bit, and we're gonna get some artifacts here. That's just to be expected. But we'll try and reduce those. But now you'll see like the difference is we just have this one box up here instead of two for inputs. And what we might want to do is, again, just butchering a bunch of images to do this because it's simpler. but we'll pull this down for the smileys. And we'll grab these and we'll pull these up. And what we can do, because now, we've gotten rid of that part on the bottom, but what we'll notice is that now we have these, we still need those toolbars, the emojis or the images. So, obviously this isn't ideal. This is kind of just a simplified fix to have these here. But the next thing that I'm noticing is that, and this has a little sidebar on it. I'll actually just accentuate that because we probably won't stick with that. But it, I think it's a good idea to have a little bit of like deliberate separation to say like, hey, this is a toolbar, not part of the full app. And again, colors will make this a little lighter so it looks cool. So now we've separated those off to be a sort of toolbar. Sorry, I'm just neurotic, so we'll do that. So that's a sort of toolbar. So now what we'll look at is actually making this a better input form. So when it says what's next for simple tasking beta, I'm wondering if it's obvious for people that this is an input. I think people with this text here might say, I'm trying to think here, like, is this obvious that it's an input? Like what is next for simple tasking beta? What I want to do is actually we'll just go to Dribble and see some examples. Usually I'd look at like a bunch of different sites to get an idea, and we could look at places like Facebook or other project management tools to see how they do it. But we'll look at, we'll just type in task input. You can kind of search to your heart's content here. I'm thinking, so something, wait, I already have an account. Okay. Not active on Dribble, but I do have an account. So, and it's not going to take me back to my search. Let's see if we can go down and find that same spot we were at. Oh, here was the example. So where it says like new task, it's deliberately different than what is above it. So here you can see like the task actually has text here, whereas this is just an item. I'm assuming that these will also be like, it is different, but it's kind of making me think that maybe people will get confused. So what we could do, we have this plus button up here, and I think that will probably be like how to add a new task or add a new thread. And again, sorry, I'm not, we haven't spoken about what this app actually does, so can't give you an exact idea. But what we could do is say, we'll just cover this up for now, add some and of course we want to make this regular, bump this over. And this is going to be a muted color too. So just for now, I'm going to take that. I actually kind of like how that looks. Again, we don't want to have a ton of different colors in our UI. There's really no need to, when you could just kind of reuse things. So this is deliberately muted, and it's a different color than the darker text here. So I think that's already an improvement for us. And what I think too is that when someone clicks in here, let's see, I like these, but I have another idea. So I'm going to drag, actually what I'm going to do is duplicate these, And we'll see how important pictures and smileys are, and that's a decision that you can make, but I'll delete these for now. And instead, what I'll do is I'll put what's going to be like a button in here. And similarly, we'll use, I'll pull this same color, and it seems like we're using pretty rounded things, so we'll keep it consistent. We'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 or 8. We'll say 6. But now we can put this, button within the input, say something like new add task. I'm not sure what that word's going to be, but task is descriptive enough for now. It's going to be bold. We will add, we're just going to make our own little plus sign here. It might look terrible, but whatever. Actually, I like doing this with a rectangle. It's just easier. So we'll go to like 15 pixels, duplicate that, and then we'll rotate this one around degrees. I don't like how Figma doesn't lock to a specific degree. Makes it kind of annoying. I feel like if anyone from Figma is watching this, like rotating something, I'm most likely going to want it to be on a set degree, but it doesn't snap. Like I'm at 86.71 degrees. That's not super helpful. Like I can't just get it to 90. I have to go in and actually type it. I guess most people just do that, but whatever. So make a plus sign. We will make this a little bit fatter. And they're not going to be perfectly aligned anymore, but we'll just, whoops, just take what we've got. Plus sign, we will take it with this. Whoops, not the one we wanted to press. We'll center it. Same with this. And so this is far from perfect here, of course. We'll probably have a better plus sign than that. I want to round the corners. That'll make a little bit of a difference. But you could see here that we have a very big and bold idea of like what people are supposed to do. And so we'll group these together just so that we have them. And we can see, what is next for simple tasking beta, add task. So people would type in here and then they would click this button. And maybe at a default state, actually we want it to be, we want to draw their attention to something. The primary action on the page is probably going to be to add a task. So we want to like really get their attention there. So I think that works. What you could do, what I'm thinking is the other option is have this muted as like it's disabled until they start typing. So here it would say, add task, and we could even make that a bit more disabled looking. But the idea would be that it would be disabled until they start typing, and then it would light up green. But that is a decision that has to be made. Let's see. What am I thinking about now? Names here. So I like the text here. It's just like paragraph text. Let's see how. I think I have alphabet txt. This is a little hack to kind of see like line length and readability. It's not going to actually copy that correctly. There we go. Copy to 3. Yeah, so I think the obviously don't have it at the same size. I think readability wise, the width is good. It's easy to read the spacing. I think that one thing is that the line height here, what I'm seeing is that the line height is pretty large. So it's good to have good line height, but it almost looks like it could fit a full letter in between here. And it's kind of in my brain, like I'm just what's coming to mind is that it feels like these are separate, even though they continue on sentences. And yeah, additionally, this where it says generates, I would turn this off. I'm blanking on the name, but I know it's a styling rule. I would remove the auto, I can't think of the word right now, myself. But it's kind of been proven that it's easier to read text that doesn't get forced out to the full width. So instead of having this like basically like there's extra little spaces in between here to make this fit right to the edge, and then words are cut off to then go to the next line. But it's actually shown that having it be kind of choppy, although it might look weird, is actually easier to read. And then you don't get these like weird spaces that get added in here. So I would just let this generate kind of come down to the full line and have the space there. It looks nicer. I could say. Um, so that's just one example. I'm not going to go through and do that because I don't have the text. I'm just trying to like save some time here. One thing that I'd say is that these bars here, I'm wondering what these colors are. Like there's nothing to indicate to me what use I get out of these colors. Um, so let me pull this up. I just want to double check that everything's being recorded properly. Okay. Like these colors, I think maybe it's not project based because these are both for simple tasking beta. So the colors I'm wondering if that's just people can add their own colors to like organize things as like labels, but then there's no label to be associated with it. So when someone's looking at this for the first time, if someone else has added a task and they're looking at this, there's kind of this pickup time where they have to realize like, oh, what are the colors for? Like, what does orange mean? What does green mean? If they're a new team member, and of course, people will tell them. But I think like Trello is a good example where they have this kind of thing, but you can expand it. So let me actually see. Let me just type in Trello on Dribble, and we'll see if I can get Trello label. So yeah, Trello's color picker. Okay, this isn't exactly what I'm talking about, but when you pick a color for something, you also give it a name or a label, and then that label sits on top of the card in Trello, and then it'll say, instead of being like on the side, it'll be like a little bar, kind of like this, and it will say, when you click it, it'll expand to say, project management or development or design. So I think implementing something like that might be interesting, where you have these little like bars running across the top, and they would probably fit like up here. I think that's how Trello has it. I think it's a good pattern, just as an example, if it's something that you want to do. But that's a question that I would have, is like what the use of these colors is. And again, you might have a really great idea for that. So no offense here if I'm just not getting it, but um, then we're looking at, planned. I think that I hate to give advice on things where I don't have enough information, but so I see planned and I'm trying to think of like what that means. So like is there ever anything that's not planned? Are these stages? Um, I see like so I'm seeing different colors, but I see both of them say planned. Maybe this is a good opportunity to have like the little spot down here. So instead of using the colors for what you're using them for right now, you could just have it be like the different stages, and maybe each task corresponds to different categories or different stages. And this would be something like this. Um, it would just be, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And of course, you play around with this, but then you would get rid of this stripe here, and that would just be white. Actually, I'm curious what pixel size this is. It's not going to work like that exactly. 7, 6, somewhere on there, whatever. Not important, obviously. But that would essentially get taken out. That obviously doesn't look, it's not how it's supposed to look. But we'll stop messing with that. But then you would have like these little things here that would draw people's attention, and then one could be orange. So instead of that, it could be this. Um, just as an example, I'm just trying to think of like how I might change that, but it's hard without realizing how difficult this is without the context of different things. But you can tell if I don't understand what the difference is between planned and something else, then a new user or a new team member, because I guess project management is all about teams and different users. So they won't have any context for like they'll have to like look around, like what's the difference between planned and not planned. You can't always solve that, but it helps to kind of give people hints or clues as to like why things are a certain way or what different colors mean, etc. Um, the other thing that I'd look at, just like on this side of the screen, is this search bar. I think that if search is important, so we have this green button and we have new task here. So I'm not sure if I haven't seen the other screens of the app, so I can't really tell you. But with this green button, I think that maybe this is to add a new task or to add a new idea. Either way, it's a shortcut. We could keep it there. I think with the search, what might help is to, I'm going to butcher this again. Let's see if my computer is going to. Thank you, Jesus. So I'll crop this, pull this over, and take just this section. And we'll white this out. I know this is kind of weird. I'm just trying to do the best that I can with what I've got. Cool. So if we pull this down a little bit, we can actually make a search bar here, and maybe we'll just pull this color in. And inner shadow, we'll make this. And I'm trying to not take all day to do this. But we can see something like search for a I'll say search for a task, and maybe we'll want to have a little magnifying glass similar to that. This is going to be far from ideal, but something like this, and then we would cover this up. Let's see. Sorry, just want to make sure that I'm not ignoring anyone right now. So we would have this kind of like pull the search functionality out and open, because if you want people to search, this is kind of a good UI pattern or UX pattern. If you want someone to search, if you want someone to use something, make it very obvious that it's there and make it easy to find. Because the harder, even just having an icon, a lot less people will search. If you see like Amazon, they want people to search. People who search for goods are, usually more likely to convert and buy products. So they have the search bar as the primary action on the page. It's right at the top of the screen, and it's very obvious that it's there. So if you want people to search, don't make it an icon. You can imagine if Amazon only had a little icon in the corner, how much less likely people would be to search. So if this is going to be something where, I really like search in different apps to be able to find tasks, especially like note taking or any project management sort of idea, I like to have the ability to search. So if that's a feature that you want people to use and take advantage of to fall in love with your product, then you definitely want to pull it out in some way. And of course, I'm just, throwing stuff up here. I'm not polishing anything, but just another idea. Now, I think, another thing I'd say is I think that this here could be a little bit smaller. We're not going to nitpick, but you can make this a little bit smaller, move this up a little bit, and give this even more room to breathe. So maybe give it a little bit more white space on the right side too. That might be interesting. We're going to actually, I want to look at like a before and after in a minute, and I don't want to, I'll just duplicate this actually and pull this down. It's not going to look great, but I don't know why this, oh, it's not the same size. That makes a lot of sense. I wish I could get this to look good, but it's just not going to, regardless, because I'm just butchering it. But this is just me being a little neurotic here. And then these squares would have like this. They could even be little little pill shaped, to kind of set them apart from buttons. And I think that looks fine. But what we'll want to look at is over here with all of these ideas here. I think that there's a lot that you're trying to squeeze into this little area. What I'd say is, well, one thing before we do that is that I think you can make this look scrollable, because right now, like, I know it's scrollable, but it doesn't exactly look like it. And you don't want to just have a scroll bar there by default. At least I don't think you do. Most of the times you don't. So what we could do is actually make this white and give this, just put a linear gradient where this is, no, we want to switch these. Another thing with Figma, I'd love if there was just like a rotate gradient option here, but you just drag these to the opposite sides. So with this, you can kind of see that this, starts to fade, and you might want it more abrupt than that. It might not even be white. You might want this to be a little gray. Oops, no saturation. But just as an idea so that people can see like, oh, this starts to fade out. And it's going to bother me that this doesn't have the same, the background of it isn't white. Oh, that's obviously going to work. Let's see, where does this cut off? Now you can see where there's something happening here where this got cut off somewhere or something's, oh, this is covering it up. Let's see. Ah, that's, sorry. Stuff like that drives me crazy. Okay, that's better. And so now we can see this start of make that fade out so it looks like it's scrollable. Just kind of give people some visual cues there. So here this says ideas, but this is actually its own idea. So I think that this is attached to this and not this. So let's see, how long is it going on? I think this is probably the last point that I'll cover. Yeah, almost 40 minutes now. I think that this idea is once we have the time, trying to think of like what's most important. You want to, I think there's just too much here in general. So we want to remove some of this. I think that these icons, I'm not sure if the icons are that important. Maybe the icons are important, but then the name here isn't important because this says simple tasking. I'm guessing this is really simple tasking because I see eco travel here, and then I see this icon. And so, and then I have this text, which feels really cluttered, and I can't really get an idea of what this is at a glance. So, we'll just look at even, I want to try and get, what this text is. I think I'm surprisingly close. So regular, let's see, maybe 15. Yeah, that looks about right. A little bit of spacing there. Whatever, that's close enough. So we'll set the width on this. Har en las hijas de en darwinadventure.com. Oy boy. Gotta brush up on my Spanish here. So we'll say that this is 20. So the reason why I wanted to duplicate this is because I want to cover up what's behind it. And kind of recreate this. So this is the text that we had. This was actually, this Elizabeth Scano was a little bit shorter. So this is saying like who posted it. So I think you have to make some decisions about like what really is important here. Is it more important who wrote the update, or is it more important which update it's going to? Because maybe we want to, honestly, I think even just removing this, like maybe that that like reduces the clutter a lot, and then pulling this out, this text fits pretty nicely here. And by cutting it off here actually gives the time a little bit more importance. And then, I'm just trying to think, I'm not trying to spend like too much time here, but as you can see, like there's so much information here that it gets bunched up and it kind of is hard to read, but I'm wondering, what are the important elements? So maybe we do something like, because it looks like this, so we have ideas here, but it's not, there's no subtask. So maybe something like, we have eco travel, and this is a little bit smaller. Oh, eco travel. I was wondering why that was so off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up. This was grayed out. Take something like this. See how far apart this is. 5, 5, and then maybe we say Liz, something like that, and we can delete this out. Pull this out a little bit. We could give this a little bit more room to breathe. And then, so now we went from this to what it was before. And so what we would want to do, what we don't have is this. So let's say eco travel general. This is just because I'm going to be neurotic about it. And so to match it up, I'm just going to pick like a red, put it over it, see if we can get it as close as possible. So it gets a little bit bigger and a little bit more. It's definitely a different typeface, so that makes it more difficult, but we'll take this. Now we have that. In the same spot, and what we're going to do is I'm going to actually take all of this, group it together, and then duplicate it and put it up here. match that up. And what was this one? This one was simple tasking beta. We can actually do this with Figma to auto align it, but I don't have that set up. Full tasking beta. And it's not Elizabeth Toscano. That one actually has, that was Esteban. And maybe you only take the first name. That would help. So, we'll take Elizabeth because, if you're on a team, I'm assuming that maybe like there's not too many people with the same name, but maybe T. And this is, I'm just gonna, Esteban, I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say A. Just as a way to save some space here, while still getting the point across. And maybe, this could even be linkable. So maybe these could both be linkable. So in some way, people can hover over them, there'll be links. We'll pull this up. Oh, what we're missing is the time. Up here, right align it. I'll say this one was 12:35. I'm not sure if the time is super important, so we're not gonna make it very bold. We'll want to play around with the colors. Like I think that these things don't need to be all that, they're not all that pertinent. And maybe the time isn't even that important because it's in order and you could probably just see the time that it was posted here. So let's actually we'll remove the time for now. And we'll pull this up again and we'll say, again, spacing is not going to be perfect or anything, but we'll say this is ideas. And we'll actually make this a little bit, I want to make this a little bigger. I want to, let's see, I duplicate this. I need to send it. Send it backwards a little bit, but we can say, pull that over. So yeah, I mean, I still like this idea. Maybe we'll pull this out. I still like this idea of like which one that you're on. I'm assuming that this is like the active thread that you're on. I think that that's fine, like the outline there. We will simply just take these groups here. And what I want to do is, I missed one. I'll move these up a little bit. Like I think the spacing is nice to have. And then what we'll do for this one is we'll actually recreate that that outline. And this is this color. I think even, instead of something like this, you could do like a background if you don't want it to stick out so much, but I kind of like this idea looks good. And then it can be kind of, this obviously again, spacing isn't perfect. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's the last thing I wanted to do, but we'll do a little before and after comparison here. So I think if I press Command 2, no, I wish I could figure out how to get it into the same focus. I don't know what that is. Let's see, view. I don't use these all the time. Oh, zoom to previous frame. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so this frame, say frame 4. Cool. This is helpful. So this is not where we started actually. We'll take this out and we'll go back to where we started, which is frame 1. We're actually going to duplicate that and put it over here. So you'll see we went through a couple different iterations with different elements. So what's nice is you could just kind of take that and pull it in, change it up based on what you're thinking. But here we're going to say, that's annoying. I kind of want to put that back now. Anyway, let's get rid of it. We'll just zoom out a little bit. So here is where we started with the UI. So we had, thread, big top bar, big icons here, colors and things like that. And then here is where we ended up. So you can see the difference here, just cleaning things up. I do like the layout and everything. I think that there might be more stuff to do, but you could see how we kind of I'm gonna hop back and forth between the two a couple times. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, let me know what you think. Hopefully this was helpful. This one lasted, this video is going to take forever to upload, but yeah, let me know if this was helpful.